What thing?
Daddy.
Yeah. You want to sit? Are you sure? Sitting good for children.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I don't believe.
I believe you.
You believe me?
I believe you.
I believe you. Well, good morning, family. Welcome back again to our channel. Welcome back to Karating. As you can see, we have an amazing weather. I hear my friends in Nairobi are freezing. When out here, we are really enjoying the sol and just enjoying being outdoors. Again, if this is your first time running into our channel, I hope you find what we are sharing worthy of your time. And if you do at the end of the video, I hope you subscribe. But in any case, that does not work for you. I'm just glad you're spending time with us. So as the title suggests, this video is going to focus on who should not come to Kenya. So if you are in this list, I highly recommend that you don't think about transitioning back to Kenya. Or if you are not a Kenyan, please don't come to Kenya if you're in this list. So in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the issue of transitioning from diaspora back to Kenya. And I've also met actually folks who are transitioning from cities to the village with people sharing all kinds of experiences. Now, the truth is, moving back to the village is really not for everyone. And that is not to say that Kenya is not amazing. Oh, trust me, Kenya is unbelievably amazing in so many ways. And whether you're talking about the weather, the sense of belongingness, the food, cost of labor, family, traditions, I mean, the list is endless. And like every other country, of course, there are good things and there are things that we could do better on. And so when you look at all the good things and the tough things, I would say that moving back to the village is certainly not for everyone. And as I mentioned in my first video, transitioning back to the village looks different from one person to another. For some people, it just means spending more time at home and moving back and forth. And for others, it simply means packing up, selling everything, and moving back to the village. So, I'm going to highlight a couple of things about people who really should not be moving home. And so I'm just going to try to keep it 100%. So, let's start with the number one. If you're a person who has no plan, just waking up and, hey, off to the village, please don't come to Kenya. Stay wherever you are. And simply because this is one of those things that goes against conventional wisdom, that when you don't have a plan, so much could go wrong, starting with finances. You may have money prepared, you show up home, and things often change. Not everything works as anticipated. And your finances could change drastically, which might make it very difficult for you to thrive at home. Issues of paperwork, especially if you are a dual citizen or if you are a permanent resident outside of the country. You may move back to Kenya and then things don't work out, and then if you mess up your paperwork wherever you were in the diaspora, then you're stuck. And so issues of paperwork can be quite a thorny concern. There's actually an example of a Kenyan who was deported from Kenya, but that was wild, something that we hope never happens again. Things such as healthcare. If you don't have a plan, things could quickly fall apart. And that is not to say that we don't have a great healthcare system. We have really good hospitals. However, as I'll say in the next couple of minutes, there's unique issues about access to the good healthcare options. Now, think about relationships. In diaspora where we live, some of us have spouses, have friends, and things like that. And that making a drastic move from diaspora back to home can fray some of these relationships. And so if you don't have a plan for the relationship you have, your spouses, your kids, please don't come. And then lastly, of course, kids. This is one of the major issues that keeps people in diaspora. So if your kids are not prepared for what they're going to encounter, that would be a challenge. So if you don't have a plan, all I say is Kenya is not for you. And then number two, if your job, wherever you are, whether it's in the city or in the diaspora, is one of those jobs that is not flexible, then coming to Kenya may be a bad idea. Because in many places, especially like the United States where I live, many jobs offer people just about 2 weeks out of the whole year for vacation. Now, you could accrue more time, but that's what is typical. That is often not enough. So this move may be challenging, especially if you're still hoping to be tethered to your diaspora job. Now, again, if you're planning to move to Kenya to come and look for employment at home, please stay, don't come. I think that is a bad idea on so many levels. And again, this is not to say that there are not really good jobs in Kenya. There are unbelievable jobs in Kenya. Unfortunately, for those jobs, for you to get them, it depends on who you know, how much you're willing to pay, and even if you pay, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the job, because many people will be happy to welcome your money without giving you back what you expected. And then with the work conditions, there are mixed reviews. There are certain jobs that have amazing work conditions, but then there are also others where you'd think they are just run by the devil's attorney general. Now, besides that, the law on employment is relatively good. However, the way it's applied also is interesting. Unlike in many diaspora areas where if something goes wrong at work, there's a very clear way to address your concerns through the law. In Kenya, it's hit or miss. And then when you're talking about the safety of the security of your job, many government jobs are relatively secure in Kenya. That is not often the case, especially in private employment. So again, I hope you're not moving back to Kenya to look for a job. And besides that, I personally believe that the few job opportunities there are in Kenya should be left for those who live at home. And so if you're coming back to jostle for the few opportunities that there are, that may not be a good idea. So if you're one person who is thinking about moving back to Kenya to look for a job, don't come. Now, next, if you have nothing to go back to in Kenya, whatever that may be, whether it's family, your network, all that stuff, coming to Kenya may be a bad idea, because I've seen folks come here getting so lonely and depressed because that transition is not often that easy. And so make sure you have something to do. And this specifically relates to those who are coming home to retire. When you come back home, just line up things that you're going to do, because you're going to have to keep yourself active. So if you have nothing else to come and do, stay where you are. Now, the next group of folks who should not come to Kenya are those who are not flexible. Like I said earlier, a lot of things change when you're on the ground. There's so many things that you hear about when you're in diaspora until you hit the ground, and there'll be quite a bit of changes here and there. And so it takes an exceptional person who is willing to change and make adjustments as needed to fully fit into society. So if you're one person who struggles with change and flexibility, then Kenya is probably not for you. Now, the next point is about having a fallback plan. Like I said earlier, nothing is guaranteed. No matter how well you plan, no matter how much time you put into this, there's going to be unexpected circumstances that pop up here and there. And so at any rate, it is highly recommended that you have a fallback plan. That is, if you come to Kenya or move to the village and things don't work out, what next? So I've seen cases where people come to the village and it works out and so many folks do well, but then there's a small group of people who move to the village and things didn't work out. So if you didn't have a fallback plan, then what next? Unfortunately, this sometimes happened to colleagues who have been deported. And unfortunately, this is one event which is often beyond people's control. So if you're moving back in an organized fashion where you're making the choice, just be sure to have, I always say, have plan C, D, up to F, so that if something doesn't work, you have a sense of what to do next. Now, the other thing that I also say that you should only come to Kenya if you're willing to test things out for a period of time. So visit, spend some time, see how that goes. And when I say visiting, I'm not talking about what we typically do around Christmas and festive season. That is not typical Kenya. Christmas, typically people take off, there's lots of good things going on. That's not typical. Come to Kenya during random times during the year. Spend some time, see how it feels. See how the weather feels, what the schools look like, the neighbors, the vibe. Because if you're going to stay in the village, I hope you're going to stay there long enough, or possibly throughout the year. So if your only experience with Kenya is specific just to holidays, then you may have a very warped picture of what Kenya really looks like. And so I always say test things out, especially outside the holiday seasons. Come during the rainy season, come when it's dry, come when there's nothing going on, so that you kind of have a sense of what an average month or a day would look like. Otherwise, if all you have is a festive experience of Kenya, well, you are up for a rude shock. So test things out. Now, the other group of folks that I highly recommend should be careful about moving back from diaspora, folks who have very complex medical issues. And as I've mentioned earlier, we have very good hospitals. The challenge with these hospitals is that they cost quite a bit, and so to get access, you're going to need to be really lined up financially. And so if you have really complex medical issues, transitioning back to the village may be a challenge. And then the next group of folks who should not come to Kenya are people whose mindsets are not well suited for how things work at home. I've heard folks who come home and they always use this phrase, back at home. And we say back at home, they're talking about diaspora. And they're constantly comparing things here. Oh, here's how we do it here. Here's how we did it. Well, yeah, that mindset comes with a lot of struggles. So if you're that person, then maybe you want to give yourself some time. Now, this also relates to people who depend on systems that function properly. When you come home, especially the village, be willing to work with systems that don't necessarily work as intended, and figure out how to navigate around them. And one good example is how to drive around Kenya. And I'll do a video on how to do that. Now, besides that, people who are not on the same page with their spouses should not come to Kenya. I've seen actually folks divorce just because of this matter. So you want to make sure that you and your spouse are on the same page as to how you're going to navigate this process. And that also relates to preparing kids. If your kids are not prepared, coming to Kenya may not be a good idea, because oftentimes kids will struggle so much, and that puts a lot of pressure in the family. Now, the last group of folks who should not come are people who move from diaspora anticipating political change. Over the years since 2007, I've seen folks who left their jobs coming home thinking that a certain political leader is going to win. So they get in. Massive mistake. So don't do that. Political change is something that is hard to predict. Well, I hope this was worth your time, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.